Hello, everybody, and welcome to Hashrate. My name is Mark Jeffrey. My guest today is Marshall Hayner, CEO and founder of Metallicus. But first, we have to give a little shout out to our partner, MEXC Exchange. Use my link in the show notes below. Join MEXC and get $4,100 bonus. On MEXC, you can use the really cool 3X coins. FTX will not let you use them in the US. MEXC will. So go sign up on MEXC and use my link below. Okay, Marshall, hello, and welcome to Hashrate.
Hey, Mark. Thanks for having me on. It's good to see you again.
Both
Cheers.
ways. It's been a while. So for those who don't know, this is actually the third time I've interviewed Marshall, right? The first time was back in, actually the first two times were in 2014. And that's when I was doing a thing called, what the fuck? It was called Bitcoin News Weekly. Yep. And we interviewed a whole bunch of companies that are no longer around and people who are no longer around, but you're still around. And one of the other guys that's still around is Vitalik because we interviewed him right before the Ethereum ICO on that show. So we found some really interesting early stuff, right? So hopefully we'll do it again.
I was saying that as I was coming here. I was telling my teammates, I'm going on to a podcast, and they said, which one? And I said Hashrate with Mark Jeffrey, going back to the origins of my first interview as I started my career in 2013. You interviewed me, I think right before or after Vitalik, like you said, and it was one of the best interviews of all time. It was great. I loved it.
Yeah, dude, it's great to have you back on the show again. I'm sorry it took so long, but I wasn't podcasting, so here we are now.
No worries.
So,
cheers.
So we have a whole bunch of things we need to talk about. So if it's all right with you, I want to just start with Proton because I know that's what I know the best. So in your own, so actually let's start here. So Proton is a fork of EOS with a whole bunch of other cool stuff built onto it. And recently, Vitalik tweeted something super interesting. He said about EOS. He said the name, it stands for Ethereum on steroids. The name reflects the fact that the core team learned from Ethereum's amateurish naivete and idealism and built out a team of professional top talent software developers that created a smart contract platform with much higher scalability and speed. This is Vitalik saying this. Like, that completely shocked me. So what do you think about that? And tell me a little bit about Proton on the way.
Yeah, I like that quote. Vitalik's an OG in crypto, and he was writing articles for Bitcoin Magazine back in the day, getting paid I think $20 in Bitcoin per article. But the price of Bitcoin was like $20, right? So it's getting a Bitcoin per article, more or less. And now being the number 2 blockchain, he doesn't really. As a person, I feel like he kind of just says what's on his mind. He doesn't really hold back or whatever. So he's being authentic when he says something that might not jive with everybody that's that's in the Ethereum camp. But I think it is authentic. And what he said was the Ethereum on steroids comment is true. EOS is an EOSIO, now known as Antelope, is an incredibly performant blockchain. I think it's the most resource efficient blockchain in the world, and that you can see that with the activity and how Proton scales, the activity on Wax, how EOS works. You really can see that. There were some issues I think early on with Bullish and EOS Network Foundation. You can see that kind of playing out now, where there's a kind of a fight between them, and that I think that kind of slowed things down, or in terms of the momentum that it had when the EVM really started to grow, and the EVM is undeniable. But I think it is an incredibly performant blockchain. We, at Metallicus, we wanted to build identity on chain. We wanted to create a platform, a blockchain platform that could scale with compliance and regulations. And, it's not that Ethereum couldn't do that, but when it comes to microtransactions, feeless transactions, resource efficiency, Ethereum L1 in its current state is not that, right? And so I think that's kind of, what the Ethereum Foundation is working towards with the merge and the vision of Ethereum. And then you have all these other L1s like Polygon and, Solana and other, chains that we mentioned that are very fast, are very low fee, but doesn't change the fact that you need some of that token. So that was kind of the vision behind Proton, was let's create the ultimate payments chain. I don't pay Venmo coins or USD to send money on Venmo or Revolut or Cash App, do I? So why should I have to do that on the blockchain for, typical transactions and payments? And the vision behind Proton was to create the ultimate L1 scalable payments chain that's ready for regulation, ready for high-speed transactions, and kind of thought out some of the future problems that we were going to run into. And that's live today, and it's a pretty cool experience. I think you're on it, and some others are as well.
You know this. I've been on it since day one, basically. And what always really impressed me about Proton was, beyond what you just said, for me, the hook was the user interface. So the fact that you have usernames, not cryptic addresses. You have cryptic addresses under the hood, but I'm at Mark Jeffrey, for example, on Proton, and so you send to me directly. The wallet was just really beautiful. The guy that you guys released on iOS, so it's a phone wallet, and it is in fact. It is end user consumer ready right away. So there is no MetaMask. All the nonsense of MetaMask that no regular human in the regular world is ever going to use. Like, you guys actually fixed that kind of before everybody else in the Proton Wallet. And it is super impressive. So I really got to hand it to you for that. So you agree? I assume you do.
Thanks. Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, that was really, why we wanted to build it, because we ran into that problem with, with Ethereum. When we started Metallicus, the company, about 7 years ago, going on over 6 years, we had this vision for Metal Token and the Metal Pay app, and this vision that anybody could mine crypto. And I think, when I started in crypto in 2009, in 2010, you could mine at home. Right. And then you could even buy some early ASIC chips, although it quickly became out of the reach for any normal person to kind of build a farm in the United States after like 2013 for Bitcoin. Then it became a really commercial operation, really early 2013 started to become that, if you remember, with Avalon miners and all that stuff. And I saw that early on with essentially with Bitcoin. I thought, okay, well, if this does grow, it's going to essentially become something that's out of the reach for regular people. So this whole idea of mining at home, it's not possible. Earning crypto is like not something that you just bought it. That was impossible, right? So with MetalPay, we came up with this vision of, hey, let's create a decentralized PayPal. And, some parts of that have to be centralized, but over time you can take these dApps and plug them together, and everything can essentially be open source, right? And that's kind of the vision. Except for, what crypto didn't really do well was fiat. And that's something our company really focuses on, that integration of banking and crypto and compliant crypto. But yeah, it really, we didn't have that capability. So Proton gave us the capability to do something like, for example, proof of process payment, where people could earn some micro payment over the web. Previously, you couldn't really do that. And now we have blockchains in 2022 that can do that, but you still have to have some of the base unit. And I think that's difficult for providers when we think about, if I was a fintech using a SaaS, I just want to plug it in and, get billed, right?
So when I use Proton, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no worries.
You keep bringing up the gas token, right? So, but Ethereum, it costs you Ethereum to do transactions. Same thing with Phantom, whatever. In Proton, there is no fee. Is that correct? There is no gas. It doesn't cost me any gas.
So technically it does, but the way that it's built is different. So when I discovered, I was there at the very beginning of Ethereum, as you know, and the origins. And essentially, I in the beginning it was great. You were there as well. It was great that the fees were very low at a time when all of a sudden Bitcoin transaction fees had started to kind of go above $1. Ethereum was still at like a few cents, a few pennies, 10 cents or something like that. And that was like late 2016. And then by 2017, as all the activity started heating up, essentially you could see that, there's a lot of transactions in the queue. People are paying higher and higher fees. So they're trying to outbid each other. And then the price of Ethereum and Bitcoin's rising. So we recognize, okay, we can't do that, right? So when I discovered EOS, and that was about 2018 after EOS had launched, I was looking at it like, this is really interesting. And by 2020, I had come to the conclusion that this is the best, fastest blockchain we have right now. It's just the issues are that the resource model was not set up correctly. So
Yeah, so let's talk about that specifically.
Yeah.
People might not know like how terrible that was. I had the same reaction. I thought it was the best blockchain also, but the UI on it was just garbage. And so go ahead, talk about the resource model.
Yeah, so you can't, the same thing with like Bitcoin or Ethereum or even like a Solana, you still have to get some Sol. You still have to get some, Tezos or some Phantom. You still have to get the base unit of that coin. If it's, Ripple or, XLM or, Ripple or Stellar, essentially you're going to have like a spam measure, like 50 lumens or 50 XRP, right? So there's always some sort of like resource fee. And it's really cost prohibitive for new users. Even though it may be, peanuts, fractions of a penny, it's like I have to do something else. Whereas like as a business, as a fintech, you're used to saying, okay, I'm going to pay for this service and I have a monthly SaaS fee. And so I'm used to like the AWS model where I pay my AWS bill. I don't, hit people with a paywall when they hit my website and says, you are, the 1 millionth visitor and it costs me $4,000 a month. So that will be 4 cents or whatever, right? It's like, no. Right? I'm going to monetize it in other ways. So Proton was built with the resource model a little bit different in the way we modified the permissions of EOSIO, Antelope, now known as Antelope. And so essentially through a governing consortium, we can delegate out resources in a way that, wallets don't have to pay. Wallets are essentially paying for transaction fees, and then the creators of those wallets don't really have to pay for their users unless they go above a certain, what I consider to be power user dev level, because the devs should have to kind of be paying. So in the future, it makes perfect sense that users don't pay fees for transactions. It's businesses like Facebook and Google that pay for those fees and then will make it back in other corporate offerings and things like that using a network like Proton. And that makes sense, right?
It does. Yeah, so let me actually, for those who don't know this stuff, so if you use something, if you go onto another Ethereum compliant blockchain, like let's just say Phantom. So when I create a Phantom wallet, if I don't have Phantom tokens in that new Phantom wallet, that wallet is bricked. So basically everybody is born bricked until somebody sends them some Phantom, right? Like, or you buy it somewhere else and send it to yourself. So, and being born bricked is a terrible user experience. EOS also was born bricked, right? So anytime you created a new wallet, first of all, someone else had to have the resources to create that wallet on your behalf. You couldn't just make it on your own, right? Because it cost RAM and CPU. That was sort of the way that it was done.
Right, and not only that, you'd have to. They could delegate some to you, and they could stake on your. You could get resources from that account, from an account that created it. But in most cases, the way that it was being implemented was that someone would have to pay for that account. So, like for example, if you use the Anchor wallet, it will charge you with Apple Pay. Really clever thing that the Greymass team did, because that's a very convenient way to get in. But still, you have to pay something to get in. And then you have to, and Greymass, in that wallet delegates you some, RAM and CPU and net once you get in, but you have to pay, but you pay for it, right? And so our thought was that should be part of the inflation. That should be part of the inflation that goes to a consortium that could be kind of like the, sort of like the World Wide Web Consortium or something like that. That's kind of, organizing things and saying, okay, this is how we're going to do it, right, on the chain. When it comes to wallets, they really should, the well-known and open source ones and ones that people use should be delegated some resources. And I believe that information is a right, right? It's not just a privilege. It's a fundamental human right for information to the internet. And I think as time goes on, we'll, as a society, embrace that more and more. But I also believe a right to banking and payments, which is really treated as a privilege now. Crypto is kind of opening that up and lowering that barrier of cost. And, it doesn't cost you anything to just generate to a private key pair, right? So when it comes to the web, you should have blockchains should be able to have some nominal amount of resources granted when you open an account, that you don't have to pay anything up front. And if you don't use anything, no big deal. And really, it should be the corporations that are building all of this tech that pay for their users and create a better user experience so there's no friction. Because in the Web 2 world, adding any little bit of friction is just the worst thing you can possibly do. In the Web 3 world, it's almost expected that there will be high friction and difficulty, And that's just because where we are right now. And my vision is that I want to go in this Apple style direction. Let's just completely rethink, the way that crypto works, keys, everything. And the other cool thing about Proton and Antelope in general is that you can, reset your private keys. Where else can you do that, right? You can add new permissions of keys. And in the past, when somebody would get their key compromised, that's it, it's over. But in Proton, you can essentially add new key permissions. You can add, an owner key, an active key, different partner keys, different types of sub keys. And we think in the future that technology will not only be used for, multi-sig and things like that, but also key recovery. So, I want to live in a crypto world where I never lose my crypto ever. As long as I don't melt my face off or something, I can, get back in. And that's been, billions of dollars have been lost from private keys and different issues. Every single person who's been in crypto for more than a couple years has probably lost some crypto due to some sort of mishap, even if a small amount. So I think in the future that won't really exist.
Yeah, no, I hear you. We have not yet crossed the chasm. I mean, everything that's happened so far, when you actually look at the number of users on all these blockchains, like actual people, it's very low. It's extremely low, no matter even across the very popular ones. So I mean, other than Bitcoin, but kind of Ethereum on down, it's very, very low numbers. So we have we're in if this is like the internet, we're still in like 1996 or something stupid like that in terms of users. So in order for consumers to onboard, we do need fiat on ramps and wallets and addresses and models and way to recover funds and all that consumer stuff, I think, to get there. So I think, of all the things that I've seen, yours is one of the most that's furthest along that path. So that's one of the reasons why I'm very intrigued with what you guys have been doing for years. So
thanks.
That having been said, you're up. You've had an uphill battle because compared to Solana and Phantom and Avalanche and all these other guys, at least before the disasters of this year started, they had a whole lot of momentum, right? So all these chains seemed unstoppable and like they were growing exponentially, and they were just out of the gate. And they had anywhere from 500 million to $1 billion ecosystem funds, and anywhere from 50 to 300 protocols, not done by them but done by other developers on their chains, and bridges. And that was all going very well until we hit some disasters. And, obviously Terra Luna being the first one, which then caused cascading disasters of 3AC and Celsius kind of going under. And I think it's over now. I hope God it's done. It feels like it's probably mostly done. I don't think there's another boogeyman hiding in the closet. I think we finally cleared the closet out. But that's had the tendency to reset the board. Like it's now anyone's game again, I think. So I think this has created a huge opportunity for you. So comment on that. Tell me, am I right? Am I wrong? What do you think about that?
I think you're absolutely right. And, what had happened was we, as an industry, as a crypto industry, I don't want to say Metallicus or myself because we weren't in that boat, but a lot of the larger companies had become extremely over leveraged, right? You look at 3AC and you look at, and also careless too, right? To say, who's borrowing it? Oh, this firm that everybody supposedly, it's almost like a Madoff thing. Don't question it. It's the best rate in the industry. Don't worry about it. Nothing could ever happen, right? And that's wrong. I think when we have smart contracts, when we have decentralized finance, why are we recreating these crappy systems that end like Lehman Brothers and Madoff and all this stuff? And, people are accusing them of being a Ponzi scheme. I don't want to get into legal hot water by taking sides or saying one thing or the other, but they were obviously operated very recklessly, and that's a fact. So what happened was we essentially had this period where it was kind of like 2017 leading up into 2021, where there's this big boom. Crypto's really exploding. It's very interesting. There's a lot of things that are happening. And in the background, there are a lot of CeFi entities that kind of took on this stance of, we're DeFi, unbank yourself. People didn't really understand, I guess, like what was going to really happen. Like you're really going to get unbanked in the sense that all your money's gone. But, I think it's interesting because at that time, as us at Metallicus, we were working on a product called Proton Loan. We launched a DeFi product called Loan, and essentially what that is, that platform is a lending platform, but it has the no gas fees like we talked about, and the decentralized identity, because we knew that over time you're going to have issues like Tornado Cash, you're going to have OFAC issues. So we built in the identity to say, we really shouldn't, as financial services companies, have to take a guess at where money's coming from and going to. I just got a letter from an exchange that I sometimes use, and they said, were you gambling at stake.com? And I said, I've never online gambled in my life, but they're struggling to use the blockchain transaction analytics software. It's best guess technology. So they're asking me for all types of data and information, and this is what customers go through. Can I see my bank statement? Oh, this is what you were doing with your money. Can you show me proof of that? It's starting to feel pretty invasive versus, couldn't it just be like Mark Jeffrey with a check mark, and this is me, and what the wallets are, and other wallets that are not marked that we interact with get grilled versus the ones that don't? I know people are going to say, how dare you and whatever, but there's room for both to exist, right? And I believe that it should be permissionless, but at the same time, you should also be able to, not have to be forced to have like your name on all of your transactions. I believe the opposite of that, but we should have a system that's easy and simple and compliant, and also makes us feel safe as consumers, right? So if my grandmother's sending crypto around, I don't want her to lose her keys. I don't want her to get phished. I also want her to not be grilled about, sending bank statements or other things like that when you have other bad malicious actors out there trying to pretend to suck that information in as well. So why not have like a great experience where we know where money's coming from and going to. We don't necessarily have to put our name on it. And we should also have that experience like our bank account where I can't see into Mark Jeffrey's bank account. Why should I be able to see into your crypto account, right? But it doesn't mean that we have to violate OFAC at the same time.
So you said something interesting. So you said that you were on Proton Loan. Are all users of Proton Loan, are they all KYC'd, like in order to interact with it? So you can't even touch it. And Proton Loan is something I imagine it's very much like Aave or something like that, where you basically roughly double collateralize or 1.5 collateralize all your loans. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. So there's a collateralization ratio, which into the future will be determined by the loan DAO, which are the loan tokens. So you essentially earn loan DAO tokens by depositing and by borrowing by using the platform. So, and it would make sense. The more you use the platform, the bigger of a power user you are, the more say you would have in different types of functions. At Metallicus, we're the core developer, so obviously we want to get audits and protect the code, but at the same time, it's about what the people that interact the platform, what they want. So assets that they want to borrow and lend with, risk ratios for liquidation and things like that. At Metallicus, we always believe in, responsible innovation. So the identity on the borrowing is great because I don't want to borrow from North Korea and not know it. I mean, what if I'm just using the platform like I thought it was normal, and then all of a sudden there's some huge issue and I'm in trouble for something I had no idea I was doing, right? So it's also, part of the responsibility of the fintech to have that. And I think also, the regulators to understand that we're doing that. Some of us are doing the best job we can, and, to work together with the technologists to get to the right place. Because I think also some of the heavy-handed regulation can set back the industry, right? So, while I'm preaching regulation, I'm also preaching that we, as developers and entrepreneurs, work with regulators, and that regulators work with us to figure it out, and it doesn't happen overnight, right? And that we don't come out and make some hard ruling and say, we're just going to destroy crypto because some lobbyist came in and convinced us, And I'm not saying that, the lobbyists necessarily convince, regulators, but they can make a lot of, noise in Washington, Capitol Hill. And I think, we really need to stand up for what's right, but at the same time recognize that, there are OFAC sanctions and we need to comply with them. And, the decentralized identity thing didn't seem too popular a while back when I was talking about it, in terms of anti-money laundering. People said, how dare you do that? But at the same time, it goes both ways. We don't want our accounts hacked. We want to recover our keys. And I think there's room for everything, right? And it depends upon your risk tolerance. But us as a company, we really want to err on the side of caution while creating a good user experience and stay compliant. And I think that's where crypto's going, especially after this big explosion. You can see, I mean, there's no question, right?
Yeah, well, without a doubt. I mean, there were several surprises. So for me, there were several surprises in what just happened. I never liked Terra Luna. I've said that on this show. I've said it on Twitter. So I never put anything into Terra and Luna, despite a lot of people saying I was crazy. I didn't like the single point of failure. So that said, I never expected it to vanish within 48 hours. That was totally a surprise, right? So I kind of felt like it would have trouble, but I didn't think it would just absolutely vanish off the face of the earth like overnight almost. So there was that. The other big surprise was, well, first of all, DeFi overall worked really great as a whole. So the DeFi was not the problem. The problem was the CeFi interfacing to the DeFi. So that was Celsius, that was 3AC, that was Voyager, that was BlockFi. All these guys were doing crazy-ass stuff that we could not see because it was not on chain, and it was just them, in the shadows. We had no idea they were doing it. And the degree to which they were doing it was just eye-popping. Like, that, I would have never guessed that was that bad. So, but, I mean, the humans will do bad things. The last thing I would say is the bridges, all the hacks of the bridges that have happened, that has been far worse than I would have guessed as well. So without a doubt, we've learned some hard lessons over the first part of 2022.
My thing has always been, usability, and we met. It's 9 years ago when I was working on something called QuickCoin, and it was all about usability. It was all about, I don't know how to use a Bitcoin wallet, but I have a Facebook account. And, you can see how that progression led to MetalPay and to Proton and everything we've been building at Metallicus. User-friendly, but under the hood, some really complex, incredible, groundbreaking software that's going to recover your keys, make gasless transactions, just create an experience that's like, wow, this is crypto because this is better than real money. And I feel like that's what we started out to do with crypto. And unfortunately, even after 13 years, we're still not quite there, are we yet? Because we see all of these hacks. Starting with the wallet hacks, we still are there are wallets out there sending unencrypted keys over plain text over servers. With hundreds of millions of dollars. Or
it was like Solana like a few weeks ago, right? Or like a month ago?
Exactly. And it wasn't like it was the first one. It's just that they happen every week. They happen every other week. So Metallicus as a company, we're kind of like a Google of crypto. We're building the ultimate crypto banking platform, ultimate infrastructure for crypto. And, starting with the wallets, we wanted to create, not everybody has a Trezor or a Ledger. And I have nothing against them. I think it's great, but not everybody has them, and you can't carry them all around. It's great. Everyone should have one, but the problem is that it's
too hard for most people. It's not gonna. Yeah. Totally.
I mean, most people have like a little IKEA tool set with like the little fake hammer and stuff, but does everybody have like a drill set and a table saw? No, not everybody. Or can they open up the hood of their car and take control of their car? So that's not really something that everybody wants to do. We really want something that's easy to use out of the box. And so we started with the wallet, and on Proton we built this wallet called WebAuth.com, and it's really more than a wallet, but it's a form of identity, but it also handles your signing. So logins, authorizations, crypto transactions, because crypto transactions are just cryptographic signing, right? Same thing for authorizations and logins. The ability to send one Bitcoin or one Proton or one metal coin or token, that's just a cryptographic transaction that we push to a blockchain to say, hey, I moved these units from one ledger or on the same ledger from one account to the other. So, with WebAuth, we created a wallet that reinvented that idea of cryptographic signing. All iPhones, Androids, mobile phones, and computers have something called a secure element in them, the secure enclave. And it's essentially a Trezor ledger inside your phone. But we haven't really started to use it until recently. And it is going to completely eliminate passwords and the need for KYC and KYB. So all of this, hold a piece of paper up next to my face, and ridiculous stuff, that's all going away. And that's not even very good anyways. And with all the AI stuff coming, it's kind of at risk, right? And when we look at the one-time password authentication like Auth Authenticator, wow, that's a really old, broken, easy to be phished kind of system. Even though it's complex in the sense it might be hard to phish somebody with it, you're still vulnerable for 90 seconds. You're still vulnerable for 60 seconds. Why is there a clock at all? Right? There's a clock because no one could possibly get that information in this time and relay it into another website. But I've seen it happen, and I've seen millions of dollars lost with that as well. So why should we even give 60 to 90 seconds of weakness when we don't need to? We should give 0 seconds, right? And it should essentially be a cryptographic signature. If we can send a crypto transaction, we can also do a multi-factor authentication with a private key. It's the same thing, right? And also, why should we leave our app to do that and go into Auth Authenticator? No hate towards Twilio or Google or whatever, but why should we even do that, right? So with WebAuth, essentially the vision is that this wallet product uses the secure enclave and it turns every phone into a ledger and tracer, and you don't actually need that hardware. So you authenticate each device, and the private key is never exposed. It lives inside of this chip on the device itself that never actually exposes the private key, like a hardware wallet. And then you can authenticate your mobile phone, your tablet, your laptop, and if you ever lose it or sell it, you just delete it. And same thing for logins. And so WebAuth was that vision. We couldn't do that with other blockchains because they didn't have the necessary technology to do that. And another difficult part of that would be submitting, for example, the Ethereum improvement proposals and core changes to those chains to do that. So we did it with our layer 1, what we call R, we're the core developer of. We did it on Proton because we have that sway in the community to get that approval from the consortium and block producers and so forth. And and then the next big hurdle is going to be the bridges, right? That's where we're seeing all of the wallets was a 2013 to to recent problem, still a problem. It's getting better, but we because we have more hardware wallets, we have better wallet software, but we're still having hacks, and now the bridges are getting exploited, and that's the next big problem.
Agreed. So let me ask you a sort of a overarching question about Proton. So you guys, well, first of all, how many users, how many transactions per second, how many users, what are kind of the stats for Proton today?
Yeah, so as it stands today, we have there's about a little over 500,000 users, 530,000 accounts on the platform. It's incredibly active. There's the NFT community is very active. Transactions are incredibly fast. It has never even come close to bottleneck, and there's been plenty of times where we've seen high load with bots attempted. And people will try this. Black hats will try this. Even white hats will say, hey, I'm going to run a stress test. Stress test of the network, but they're not really a white hat if they don't work together with the core team.
Otherwise known as an attack.
Right. So we've got a mixture of both, right? And we've survived all of that. And I think better than some of the other EOS had some problems early on because the governance and the resource model wasn't there to kind of actively thwart it, right? So having that in place, and not to say that it hasn't evolved. I love everything that ENF is doing and where Antelope is going, and a lot of things have improved. But I think Proton is like a shining example of Antelope as a payments chain, as a chain for fintechs and banks, and optimized for payments. But yeah, that's the chain as it stands today. About a half 500,000 users. It's a smaller market cap, not to get into price talk, but 44 million or so market cap. So it's a smaller market cap, and it's just extremely performant, right? You have the ability to, if you want to send a transaction, this is one of the fastest blockchains in crypto. The next fastest blockchain would be Avalanche, essentially, but that has the high fees, obviously. But high fees relative, but still, the Proton is the place to be. If you were going to, sign up your grandmother or some person to crypto and they didn't understand it, it's hands down the simplest thing.
I agree.
Yeah,
I've used it. I've used the wallet. I've used the sites. So, and I remember the first time I sort of felt in my bones that sort of Google speed, like the speed with which the Google website launches on your browser is the same speed with which transactions are performed on Proton. I'd never seen that before, right? I was used to Ethereum, and I was like, holy crap, that was amazing. And that was the first time I sort of felt in my bones what it could be like. And I've since seen similar stuff on Binance and Solana and Phantom to a certain degree. So it's no longer unique, but it was the first time I had experienced that. So you live in a world where you're sort of fighting these guys that have 500 million to $1 billion for eco funds, and they have I don't know all the numbers of all the chains, but it's bigger. We can agree on that. So what is the way in which you break out? How do you basically beat all these guys?
Yeah, so I'm a big believer. I'm a huge fan of Steve Jobs, and his vision for make you want to lick the buttons off the screen, create an incredible, groundbreaking experience. It's not just about what's the fastest or whatever. What is the ultimate experience, right? And what inspires you beyond just before Apple, this computer has better specs than this computer, but it's all just trying to one up each other versus a completely new vision that just that makes you have a better life using those products. And I know that sounds kind of crazy, but it's true, right? It's like, wow, these products create a better experience. I'm all Apple right here, but with the vision for Proton, it was kind of like that same thing, right? And with Metallicus and MetalPay, banks with crypto suck today. So MetalPay is an option to bank with crypto where you're not going to have to worry about them shutting off your bank account. And also we're building, the fast gas-free payments layer 1 chain. So when you withdraw, you don't have to pay any gas fees. And you can go straight into dApps that are fast, that have decentralized identity. They're not going to have the compliance problems. Also, when it comes to fiat, how do you integrate fiat into these other apps? And so, back to your question, which is how do you compete against these guys? I frequently say, we are the people's blockchain with Proton, right? Or the grassroots kind of Dogecoin style blockchain. And when you look at like Dogecoin early on, you might have thought, okay, there's no way this dog on a coin can do this and can grow like this. But, it had several things going for it. It had fast payments. It had low fees.
It had a dog.
It had a dog on a coin and people underestimated how intimidating crypto is. To be not intimidating and to be a joke actually turned out to be a brilliant, genius idea, right?
Well, Disney is a meme company based on a mouse.
There you go.
It can be done,
and
it's not like completely insane.
Exactly, and so that. How do we win? I think that we win through the people, through products, and right now there's very few companies like top Fortune 50 tech companies and stuff that are using these blockchains. There's a few like Reddit started using Polygon, but they're not like Fortune 50 or anything, but they're well recognizable. But we still haven't seen like Salesforce, Google, or other companies like that kind of adopt standards. And I do predict that a lot of them are going to create their own chains. Salesforce already has one. Kakao has one in Korea. Clayton. There's so many different kind of corporate offerings that are going to be coming. But how do we compete? I really feel that we solve real problems, right? I think a lot of the bigger chains are we're going to give you a phone that's special crypto phone. It's not like the first time I've heard that before. I don't mean to take shots.
Are you talking about Solana right now, perhaps?
I'm not going to say, but you can guess. And, like just gimmicky things that I think, may make a splash in the media, may, attract attention. But, really at the end of the day, let's talk about the secure enclave in your phone. How could I sign you up with a crypto account without having to own any of the cryptocurrency beforehand with just your face? And you won't even need the seed anymore to write that down.
But the problem with that is that you have to deal with Apple and the App Store or the Google Play Store, right? Those guys hate crypto, and they're not, or at least that's been my experience. They're not very friendly. Whereas the Solana phone, it's like whatever they want to do goes. So what do you think about that?
So I think that that's kind of like a narrative, probably by the people that are pushing that. Because in my interaction, and I've been working with Apple for a number of years, deploying apps into the App Store has been a great experience. There was a time, if you remember, back in the day, and I think it was like 2013, for about a year or so, that Apple did take that hard stance, and they killed all the crypto wallets and did everything. And that was the moment that I actively protested Apple and got Android and just dropped all the Apple devices and everything. And then they brought crypto back, and I was like, oh, thank God, I love Apple products. And they've been very they have worked with crypto companies. The thing about Apple that crypto companies don't like is they're strict. They're very much more strict than Google. And so you can't have an app store within your app. You can't have a dApp store. And I think a lot of people just haven't been able to wrap their head around that, right? That, Apple is going to make their own dApp store. You heard it here first. Apple dApp store, it's coming. And they own the rights to it. And your dApp can go in that dApp store. But you won't have a dApp store within the App Store today. And so there are restrictions like that. And it is more difficult. I remember there was a wallet recently that got removed because the way they presented their tip button, and some other issues. They're just strict. It's not that they're anti-crypto. In fact, Apple is giving us the tools, and also Google, but Apple, I think, is really leading the charge on this to have a better crypto experience, not just cryptocurrency, but cryptography on the device. And so, to bring it back to WebAuth.com and what we're building. Apple is about to, Google's working on this too, but they're about to launch passkeys, which will allow you to have those, to use the secure enclave between devices without exposing it, which is incredible. So now, if you created a device on a key on one device, it could be accessible on another one without exposing it. That's really awesome. I think they're tough. It's definitely harder, but not just for crypto. It's all apps in general, games, everything. Whereas the Play Store is I guess like a lower bar for, what can go in. So it's easier to get in there, for better or for worse. But I do think that Apple is really going to, through its hardware and through its kind of vision, is pushing that direction for better security, 1Password. I do worry that at some point, they could just say, okay, we only have 1Password solution, because they do that, right? But, headphone jack, gone, right? But for the most part, they've made really good decisions. There's a few weird ones that I'm like, I don't know. But I don't know. We don't need like a crypto phone right now. We actually have all the hardware. That's part of my message. Why are you going to go out there and buy this phone that's nowhere near what the latest iPhone is? Nowhere near. It's not even close. Not even close to probably the other latest Android, even though I'm sure they'll try to get it there. When you have the secure enclave in your phone, and you could be signing crypto transactions without gas fees from Safari or Chrome on your Android or your iPhone with WebAuth.com with a secure element, why do you need another $400 device when you already have probably the best device that there is, right? Or a lot of people. And if not, you may not, in the reverse of that, maybe you have a cheaper phone. You don't want to spend all of that money. You don't have to, right? Every device already has the secure enclave. So there's a lot of these narratives in crypto that are, we need this.
Okay,
we need
fair
that.
enough.